the human soldier chose the least respected alien princess as his prize. An H5 story prologue. The auction of victors, the grand coliseum of Vashtar hummed with 1,000 alien dialects, all of them murmuring the same question: why hadn't the human chosen yet? Sergeant Cole Reyes stood on the obsidian dais, blood still drying on his knuckles. The roar of the crowd rolling over him like a tide he'd stopped noticing an hour ago. Behind him, the corpse of the Collar warlord Urgnash, undefeated champion of the 13 colonies for 600 cycles, steamed where it had fallen. Cole had ended a war that morning. Not with a fleet. Not with a bomb. With a knife, a broken rib, and the stubborn refusal to stay down. Now came the reward. The Vashtar Accord was old. Older than Earth's written history, and its terms were simple. When a champion ended a blood rite by single combat, the champion could claim any prize the losing empire possessed. Territory, technology, fleets, or a bride. 7 alien princesses stood in a line before him, each glittering in the regalia of her house, each representing a political alliance worth more than most planets. Cole's diplomatic attaché, a nervous man named Whitfield, had spent the last hour whispering names, titles, and very specific instructions into his earpiece. House Kesserin, Whitfield hissed. Princess Vel'kori. Trade routes through the Ashen Belt. Choose her, and Saul gets preferred shipping lanes for the next 50 years. Cole said nothing. House Strathis, Whitfield tried again, sweat beating on his collar. Princess Nixa. Her house controls the plasma refineries. Choose her, and we solve the energy crisis on 3 colonies. Still nothing. The 7 princesses watched him with 7 different expressions. Hunger, calculation, boredom, disdain. All except the last one. The 8th wasn't even supposed to be on the dais. Chapter 1. The one nobody wanted. She stood at the far end of the line, half in shadow, wearing robes that had clearly been restitched more than once. No jewels, no guards, no entourage whispering her lineage into anyone's ear. Who's that? Cole asked. Whitfield actually laughed, a short, nervous bark. That's nobody, sir. That's Princess Ithri of House Vel'kori, minor house. Practically extinct. Honestly. They lost their fleet 3 generations back, lost their territory 2 generations back, and lost what was left of their dignity when the old king gambled away their ancestral seat in a card game with the Kalor. He lowered his voice like he was sharing a scandal. The other princesses call her the Ash Princess. Some houses didn't even want her included in the ceremony. She's on the dais because Vashtar law requires every eligible royal to stand for the champion's choice, technicality or not. So she's got nothing, Cole said. Sir, she's got negative something. Choosing her gets you laughed out of 11 star systems. Choose Vel'kori, please. Cole looked back down the line. Princess Nixa of House Strathis was already smiling at him like she'd already won. Princess Vel'kori hadn't even bothered to look up from her nails, sharpened, he noted, into deliberate points. Then he looked at Ithri. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't performing. She was watching him the way a soldier watches an enemy line, assessing, cataloging, waiting to see what he'd do, already planning for every version of it that ended badly for her. That's not the look of someone who's given up, Cole thought. That's the look of someone who's used to losing and has stopped pretending it doesn't matter. He'd worn that look self once. Boot camp, week 3, the day his sergeant told him he'd never make the cut. Cole stepped off the dais. The crowd went silent in that specific way crowds go silent right before they lose their minds. He walked the length of the line, past Vel'kori's sharpened smile, past Nix's radiant calculation, past 5 more houses' worth of political leverage, and stopped in front of the woman nobody had bothered to dress properly for her own humiliation. Princess Ithri. Cole said. I choose you. For one full second, the Grand Colosseum of Vashtar made no sound at all. Then it exploded. Chapter 2, The Reaction. Whitfield's voice in Cole's earpiece climbed 3 octaves. Sergeant, I need you to reconsider, sir. This is a diplomatic catastrophe. House Vel'kori has nothing, no fleet, no seat on the Consortium Council. Their own people barely acknowledge. Whitfield. Sir, I have to strongly advise Whitfield. Radio silence unless something's shooting at me. The earpiece went quiet, though Cole suspected it was less obedience and more Whitfield having a small private breakdown. On the dais, Princess Vel'thara's sharpened nails had gone white-knuckled around a fistful of her own robe. Princess Nyx's radiant calm had cracked into something colder. Somewhere in the stands, an alien dignitary actually fainted. But Cole wasn't watching them. He was watching Ithri. She hadn't moved. She stood exactly where she'd been standing, robes patched, spine straight, and on her face was an expression Cole recognized instantly, because he'd worn it himself more times than he could count. The look of someone bracing for the joke to reveal itself, for the punchline to land, for this to be the cruelest kind of prank. This isn't a joke, Cole said, quiet enough that only she could hear it over the roaring crowd. It should be, Ithri said. Her voice was low, controlled, and carried an edge Cole hadn't expected from someone who'd apparently spent her whole life being told she was worthless. You've just handed a diplomatic weapon to every house that wanted to see Saul humiliated. House Vel'kori brings you nothing, human, no fleet, no trade routes, no technology. I am the daughter of a bankrupt house, the existence on this consortium's charity and the memory of what my grandfather threw away. You've made a mistake in front of 11-star systems. Maybe, Cole said, or maybe everyone in this room forgot to ask you a question before they decided what you were worth. Ithri's composure, the same iron composure that had clearly kept her upright through years of exactly this kind of conversation, flickered for the first time. What question? She asked. What you'd do, Cole said, if somebody finally gave you the chance. Chapter 3. What the records didn't say. That night, aboard the human diplomatic cruiser Fortitude, Whitfield burst into Cole's quarters with a data slate clutched like a lifeline. Sir, I need you to look at something before this gets worse. Worse than a diplomatic catastrophe? Sir, I pulled House Vel'kori's full records. Not the summary. The full records going back 9 generations. Whitfield's hands were shaking, but not with panic this time. With something closer to disbelief. Their fleet wasn't lost in a war, sir. It was sold, piece by piece, by the last 3 kings to pay off gambling debts. Their territory wasn't seized, it was forfeited willingly, because nobody in that line wanted to actually rule it. Every single humiliation that house has suffered for 200 years was self-inflicted by men who inherited a crown they never earned and didn't respect. Okay, Cole said slowly. So look at her, sir. Whitfield pulled up a second file, service records, education logs, a disciplinary history that read less like royal misbehavior and more like a resume. Princess Ithri isn't just the last heir of a disgraced house. She's the only member of House Vel'kori in 4 generations who actually tried to fix it. She petitioned the Consortium Council for reinstatement of trade rights. Denied 17 times because nobody takes a bankrupt house seriously. She's fluent in 11 languages because she taught herself using outdated data slates because her house couldn't afford tutors. She reorganized what's left of Vel'kori's holdings, a single mining outpost nobody wanted, and turned a loss into break even in 3 years with no capital and no support. Cole set down the ration bar he'd been eating. She's been running a bankrupt kingdom with nothing, Whitfield continued, getting told no by everyone who mattered, and still showing up to try again. Sir, the other princesses inherited armies and fleets and said, thank you. She inherited nothing and built something anyway. Cole thought about the look on her face in the Colosseum. Not defeat. Bracing. She's not the least respected princess in that lineup. Cole said quietly. She's the only one who actually earned anything. Whitfield sat down hard on the edge of a supply crate. Sir, with respect, did you know any of this when you chose her? No, Cole admitted. I just knew what it looks like when somebody's been counted out their whole life and hasn't quit anyway. He picked the ration bar back up. Figured that was worth betting on. Chapter 4. The Ash Princess Speaks. Ithri requested an audience the next morning, and Cole granted it before Whitfield could schedule a single strategic briefing around it. She entered the Fortitude's conference room alone, no guards, no entourage, same patched robes, spine just as straight as it had been on the dais. This time, though, she didn't look braced for a punchline. She looked like someone who'd spent all night deciding whether to fight or fold, and had chosen fight. I want to understand your terms, she said, before Cole could speak. Every champion who's claimed a bride in the last 300 years has done it for territory, technology, or trade leverage. I bring you none of those. So either you're a fool, which the reports on your combat record suggest you are not, a flicker, almost a smile, gone as fast as it appeared, or you want something else. I'd like to know what, before this goes any further. Cole leaned back. You ran a bankrupt mining outpost from a loss to break even with nothing behind you. You petitioned the council 17 times and got denied 17 times and petitioned an 18th. You taught yourself 11 languages off broken data slates because nobody would fund a tutor for the disgraced house's last heir. Ithri went very still. I didn't choose you for your fleet, Cole said. You don't have one. I didn't choose you for trade routes or refineries or a seat on the council. I chose you because everyone in that Colosseum spent an hour telling me what you didn't have, and not one of them mentioned what you'd actually done with it. That's not a woman with nothing to offer. That's a woman everyone underestimated on purpose, because a competent Vel'kori is a lot more inconvenient to certain houses than a pathetic one. For the first time since the Colosseum, Ithri's composure didn't just flicker. It broke. Just slightly. Just at the edges. You had my file pulled. My attaché did. I asked him why. And what did he tell you? Cole met her eyes. He told me you're the only person in your bloodline who ever tried to earn the title everyone else just inherited. Rest of the Colosseum called you the least respected princess in the 13 colonies. He shrugged. Seemed to me like they just meant the least handed respect, not the least deserving of it. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was the specific quiet of someone recalculating everything they'd assumed about a situation. House Vel'kori has one asset left, Ithri said finally, carefully, like she was testing the weight of each word before committing to it. One outpost. One mine. It's not worth much on a balance sheet. I didn't ask what it's worth. Then what did you ask for? Cole almost smiled. I didn't ask for anything yet. I'm asking now, what would you do with real backing? Not charity, not a rescue. A partner with resources who's actually willing to listen to what you've already proven you can do. Ithri looked at him for a long moment. The look of a soldier recalculating the battlefield after realizing the terrain had changed. I'd want the Consortium Council to answer for 17 denied petitions, she said. I'd want to see if my mining outpost could support a refinery with capital I've never had access to. I'd want... She stopped herself like she wasn't used to finishing that sentence out loud. Say it, Cole said. I'd want the chance everyone decided I didn't deserve, Ithri said. That's all. That's everything. Then that's what you've got, Cole said. Not because I felt sorry for you. Because you're the only royal in that Colosseum who actually earned a second look. Chapter 5. The 18th Petition. 6 months later, the Consortium Council chamber was once again packed to capacity, this time not for a Blood Rite, but for something the older delegates called unprecedented and the younger ones called overdue. Princess Ithri of House Vel'kori stood at the petitioner's podium for the 18th time. Except this time, she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a modest human delegation, a data slate full of independently verified production figures, from a mining outpost that had, in 6 months, gone from break-even to genuinely profitable, funded not by charity, but by a joint development contract that Ithri herself had negotiated line by line. And beside her, in dress uniforms, stood the man who'd once ended a war with a knife and a broken rib, saying nothing at all, because for the first time in 9 generations, House Vel'kori didn't need anyone to speak for it. "Council members," Ithri began, and her voice didn't shake. "6 months ago, you denied this petition on the grounds that House Vel'kori lacked the capital, the infrastructure, and the credibility to sustain expanded trade rights. I'd like to submit updated figures. She didn't beg. She didn't apologize for existing. She laid out numbers that couldn't be laughed off a stage, refinery blueprints that couldn't be dismissed as fantasy, and a track record. Her track record, built with nothing, for years, while everyone called her the Ash Princess, that spoke louder than any inherited fleet ever could. The vote wasn't close, as the chamber erupted. Not in mockery this time, but in the particular scramble of a dozen houses suddenly remembering they had reasons to court House Vel'kori after all. Ithri stepped back from the podium and allowed herself, for just a moment, an expression Cole had never seen on her before, not bracing, not calculating, relief. 17 times, she murmured, mostly to herself. You'll never have to count that high again, Cole said. Ithri looked at him. Really looked. The way she had in the Colosseum, except now the assessment wasn't wary. It was something closer to certainty. You didn't choose me because I was a prize, did you? She said. It wasn't quite a question. No, Cole admitted. I chose you because you were the only one in that room who'd already won a war nobody was watching. Figured you'd earned the one they were. Behind them, the Consortium Council chamber was still in chaos, houses that had ignored House Vel'kori for 2 centuries suddenly falling over themselves for an audience. Whitfield, watching from the gallery, allowed himself the first easy breath he'd taken in 6 months. The Ash Princess was gone. In her place stood something the 13 colonies hadn't had to reckon with in 9 generations. A Vel'kori who couldn't be counted out again. Epilogue. What they say now, they tell the story differently across the 13 colonies, depending on who's telling it. The diplomats call it the strangest treaty negotiation in consortium history, a human soldier who turned down 5 trade empires and a fleet for a bankrupt house's last heir, and somehow came out with a stronger ally than any of them. The soldiers call it proof that humans don't know how to read a losing position, and somehow keep winning anyway. But on the mining outpost that used to be House Vel'kori's only asset, now the anchor of a refinery complex employing thousands, funded by a partnership neither side regrets. They tell it simpler, they say. He looked past what everyone said she didn't have, and found what she'd never stopped building. And somewhere in the Consortium Council archives, filed under a petition finally marked approved, there's a single line in Ithri's own handwriting, added after the vote. Never let anyone else decide what you're worth. Especially not you.